I'm back, Irish fans, for Breaking Down Brisbane's podcast. Good to be back talking. Didn't have time to bring on Trevor today because I have class in about 30 minutes after this, so just got to go quick. Can't really accommodate other people, but wanted to put something out about the non-conference schedule. The full schedule should be out sometime in the next week or two. I'm guessing this week, but I'm not sure. Um, but non-conference is mostly what I was looking for because we already know who Notre Dame's going to play and how many times they're going to play them in the ACC. Just not who exactly, or just not when exactly. That's all we'll get when the full schedule's out. But wanted to talk about the non-conference schedule first. This year it's a complete slate of non-conference games, unlike last year where Bray kind of just threw a schedule together sort of at the last minute and figured the rest out later, which he did a nice job of. I'll give them that. But games like Tennessee got canceled. They didn't have scrimmages, and there weren't a whole lot of bye games because the budget was tough. But this year, somewhat back to normal with two scrimmages. Not really going to break those down at all, just because it's scrimmages. I doubt they'll even be televised or we'll have any way to watch them. I haven't been able to watch any in the past, so this one I'm not expecting anything. But it's good to get the guys running together. Good to get them in game shape, and then it's also good for kind of them to mesh because last summer Trey, Prentice, and Cormac never really got it all going together, and Dane, I guess you can include in that group too. And then you're adding in Blake and JR. I think it's going to be a nice opportunity to get those guys going early on before the games count, and then it'll give Bray some time to experiment with what he wants to do defensively because it seems like they're in better shape defensively. So that's definitely something to look for in those scrimmages. If you are able to watch them, look for a lot of playing time from the freshmen. Look for Cormac, Trey, and Prentice to hopefully get it going, playing together, and Dane. But those, I would love to be able to watch those games, but I doubt I'd do a pregame show or anything in those schools. Notre Dame's going to kill more than likely, so I'm not going to go into full detail about those games yet. Good for those programs that they're going to be able to play Notre Dame and get some money from it. But other than that, not too much to take from those yet. But Notre Dame's going to open, guessing at home against Cal State Northridge. I looked a little bit into them, returned only two of their top five scorers. Should be a nice way for Notre Dame to start out strong, one of those teams that Notre Dame should kind of wipe the floor with. I'll do a full breakdown of that game when they start, but also play High Point right after. So kind of a nice way to start out with teams that Notre Dame can beat. Start out the year last year, Notre Dame went to Breslin Center against Michigan State, albeit not a true Breslin Center experience. Michigan State wasn't very good last year, even though they looked pretty good against Notre Dame. And they also didn't have the crowd. But that wasn't a true experience, but Notre Dame should not have started with that game. Looking back on it, I mean, if that team was as good as Bray thought they were, then maybe, yeah, they should get tested early in the season. But, man, now I think they're in a lot better shape based on I think this is a much better start for a group that really needs to get going. And I brought up Cormac earlier, but last year, wanted to touch on this with the way the schedule kind of starts out. I think it's good for Cormac especially, and just guys that this could happen to is like shooting slumps early in the year. Cormac shot pretty poorly in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the year and never had a chance to get back on track because they played so many good teams over the course of that span. So just wanted to touch on that. I think this is a good opportunity for guys to kind of get their confidence up, guys to create good looks for themselves, and then hopefully they won't have to get back on track once you're playing ACC level teams. So just wanted to touch on that. I think it's good for the guys to kind of get in a rhythm against these teams. High Point specifically, wanted to touch on a few things with them. Tubby Smith is their coach. You might know him from Memphis right before Penny Hardaway. He's also a coach at Georgia, and pretty sure he won a national championship at Kentucky. That was before my time, but from what I remember, he likes the slower type of pace. Kind of formed Memphis into a blue-collar defensive team before Penny got there, and they're still kind of like that, even though they have a lot more talent than Tubby had there. They should be returning their top scorer, who averaged like 20 points a game. but last year they finished 8th in the Big South, and they don't return a whole lot of guys, so I'm not expecting too much. Could be interesting to see how Notre Dame's fast-paced offense kind of contrasts with what High Point likes to do is not that. So should be fun there. Should be nice to see Tubby Smith again. It's been a while since his Memphis days. So moving on to kind of the tougher stretch, Notre Dame goes to Maui about a week after that, playing St. Mary's November 22nd. That's a really experienced team. Seems like they have pretty much everybody back. I think their top 7 scorers are all back, and they're all upperclassmen. Could be a sneaky tough game, even though St. Mary's, you don't think of a tough game for them. But they could catch Notre Dame off guard in Maui. Not a home court for either team. And even though Notre Dame normally does well in Maui, St. Mary's is somebody they could definitely get knocked off by. And then if they win, they play Oregon. So definitely going to be tested there for the first time. I don't think High Point or Cal State Northridge are going to really give them a whole lot of trouble, but St. Mary's and Oregon definitely ramping up the schedule. And then as soon as they leave Maui, probably a couple days after, they're going to Champaign. John Rothstein, here comes the pain. Illinois, they're playing in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Originally, I liked the matchup. That was before Kofi Cockburn decided he wanted to go back to school. Now Illinois is ranked by pretty much every analyst as a top 10 team. I think they're pretty overhyped. I think they are more of a top 20 level team. I don't think they're necessarily what people think they are. Not a huge Curbelo guy, and their guards are not big at all. Notre Dame has bigger guards, 6'5", with Cormac and Trey, and then Blake's around there too. Coburn is going to give Notre Dame problems, though. Paul Atkinson's going to have to bring his A game there. We'll definitely enjoy covering that game. Should be a really good one. I think Notre Dame can put up a fight more than people think they can. Illinois does have some weaknesses as a team, and I think those will probably be shown early in the year. But, yeah, that's going to be tough. Dealing with Kofi Cockburn is never fun for a group like that. So that's what I have to say about Illinois now. I'm sure I'll have more in November, before Notre Dame plays them. This year I'm going to change the game preview format a little bit, and then going to do more stuff post-game. But I'll definitely still break down every game at least a little bit beforehand. And then after Illinois, Notre Dame has a week without a game scheduled. I'm assuming an ACC game is going to take that spot because they're going to play an ACC team early in the year. Maybe a couple, can't quite remember, but they're playing Kentucky on December 11th. We saw Notre Dame went to Rupp Arena last year and won. That is almost a completely different roster than Kentucky's going to field in this game. Kentucky's old. They got a bunch of transfers and still got guys like Ty Washington. They come in and get things going for them. If there's no game between Illinois and Kentucky, Oscar Tshiebwe and Kofi Cockburn is going to be a heck of a back-to-back for Paul Atkinson. Really going to see what he's made of there against them. And, yeah, Kentucky's just a good team full of shooters, not a typical Coach Cal team with a bunch of one-and-dones. They're still going to have guys go to the NBA, I'm sure, but this is not a typical Kentucky team, and they might be better than they have been in past years. I'm sure they'll be better than they were this year, which was a really down year, which the team just never seemed to mesh, didn't have summer program. And a lot of guys like Olivier Sarr never really looked up to what a lot of people thought they could be with Kentucky this year. I think they're more of a sure thing. Ceiling isn't as high, but, man, they're going to be a good team. Regardless, Notre Dame's going to have to bring their A game when Kentucky comes to South Bend. After that, they're playing in the final cross, what's it called? The one at the Pacers Stadium. Slipping my mind, but they're playing Indiana, also a really good team. I think Indiana has really slept on nationally. I don't think they're in most people's top 25s, but a team with Trace Jackson Davis, All-American candidate, Xavier Johnson, we've seen what he can do against Notre Dame, even though he had a kind of a rough year in his last year at Pitt. And then they have guys coming back like Christian Lander, who was a 5-star, Tamar Bates, who was a 5-star. Just a really talented, deep team overall. Trey Galloway is a guy Notre Dame wanted, who's going to play a big role for them this year, played a nice role as a freshman. Mike Woodson has done a phenomenal job this offseason recruiting his whole team back and then recruiting other guys like Tamar Bates to come in and contribute. So they're going to be a team that I think is going to be better than a lot of people think, and they're going to give Notre Dame a run, especially if their bigs can contribute, like Michael Durr. Then Paul Atkinson might have a tough time too. Durr, I'm pretty sure, is a good shot blocker. So Indiana could definitely give Notre Dame a tough game at the Crossroads Classics, like they did a few years ago. Then Notre Dame gets a bit of a break, even though it's only 2 days later. They play Western Michigan, who finished 9th in the MAC, returned B. Artis White, but not much else. I almost think that's the worst team on the schedule. Texas A&M Corpus Christi is next, also in the running for worst team on the schedule. They're not going to be much, I don't think. It'll be a nice break after some really tough games, those two. And I'm sure there'll be ACC games right after that too. So those are 2 must-win games for Notre Dame. Even though not huge resume builders or anything, those are games that are important that Notre Dame gets just for confidence. And I like that they put them after Indiana, Kentucky, and Illinois so they can get back on track if things go south in those games. And if not, it's just good confidence builders, and it looks good padding the stats and the numbers come March. So I don't know a whole lot about Texas A&M Corpus Christi, admittedly. Know more about those other lower major teams that they play, but I'm not too concerned about them, and I don't think a lot of you guys are either. I'll have more on them when we get closer. And then Howard played on January 17th in D.C. Bray said that Biden and Harris will probably be there. So that'll be really interesting to see how Notre Dame plays in front of them. Should be a full stadium. And then they're also playing in front of Rob Balanis, who left Notre Dame staff about a week or 2 ago for Howard. Should be a nice break in conference play, and interesting storylines all over the board there with Balanis. Howard, on the other hand, though, is not a really good team. So there's a lot of pop and circumstance going on for that game, but Notre Dame should probably handle business pretty easily. Lose McCurmaker. Nogel Eastern is gone. Howard they were not very good last year, and they lost a Big Ten transfer and their guy who should have been a lottery pick probably, but really tanked his stock at Howard. Not a lot of it wasn't his fault. Injuries and COVID. He had COVID for a while, and I think he had a hard time recovering. Now he's professional in another country, I think maybe the NBL, but Howard is not going to be a really good team that Notre Dame has to play. So that's a nice break in January. I'm glad they kind of split that up, MLK Day. But that's all I have for the non-conference schedule. Overall, I like it a lot better than last year's. Last year's I liked it, but that's because a lot of people thought, including myself, Notre Dame was going to be better than they actually were. This year it kind of gives them more of a shot to get going, and now all their wins don't have to be against high-level ACC teams or whatever. They have a much better shot at getting to 20 wins this year with the schedule. So, and also a few tests like Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois. If they can get one of those games, that's a huge resume builder and something Notre Dame can really take advantage of. So I really like how they made this schedule. Just getting easier games in to get wins, get the confidence up, get breaks in the schedule. Then you also have games like Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana that can really test this group and give them resume builders come March. So thank you guys for watching. We'll have more stuff out soon. So thank you guys. Talk to you later. Go Irish.